Hey, Dr. Singh, Dr. Bolton, and our great customer, Mr. Will West. I just want to give you guys a mid-project update on where we're at now for our analysis for the Huntsville and Madison County City Chamber. In this video, you'll see myself, Chris Crumpton, Luis Garcia, and Courtney Kraus. All right, throughout this video, we'll give you our project definition and scope of work, our methods of analysis, our key challenges, and our updates, milestones, and where we plan to go going forward. As far as our scope of work, our project was to work with the Huntsville and Madison County City Chamber. They gave us information at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we were to take those statistics provided and develop analysis and compare Huntsville and Madison County to 50 comparable metros. In comparing the other 50 metros to Huntsville, we are going to look for trends, look for areas of growth in occupation by industry and wages by industry. And we are also going to look at projecting the next 5 years of Huntsville against the other 50 metros. In meeting with our customer at the beginning of the project, we were giving a set of questions that we hope to get the answers to. They are, how does a percent mix of occupations Huntsville compare with other similar metros? How does Huntsville's growth in major occupations compare to other metros over the past 5 years? How has the average wage in each occupation group changed compared to other communities? And what do the 5-year projections look like compared to other metros?
Well, good evening. My name is Luis Garcia, and I'm here to talk about some of the methods that we use to look at our data and try to address the questions that are presented to us by our client. There's a method that we fell back on from our earlier studies in how to, basically the end state was to develop some model to support our client's intent. So as Chris mentioned earlier, our client had very specific goals in mind to answer some questions from down the road. So to do that, we had to go through a large data set. And so one of the main things we had to do was to scale down that data set to something that was more manageable that would actually meet our client's intent, which again was to find those market areas that they could focus on for recruiting efforts, right? So to do that, we decided to fall back on the CRISP DM model, right, of how to look at developing data analytics models. Okay, so just to review, the CRISP DM method and what it is and how it applies to our project is as follows. So first, we look at the business research and understanding phase, which we were trying to look at the objectives given to us and understand the data that we were given. So first we had to collect the data. We were given the advantage that our client wanted us to use the Bureau of Labor Statistics website to download those data sets. We evaluated the quality of data and determined that it was highly data of high quality, right, and not to have a lot of errors in it. So the third phase that we focused on was the third phase after data understanding was data preparation, and this is what we found thus far to be the thing that has taken up the most of our time. As you'll see later, we've kind of tried to address different aspects of those other geographical areas like for example wages as they pertain to the entire population of a city, or wages as they pertain to a specific job category that the client wanted us to analyze. And on the other hand, sometimes we would look at population growth and also labor category population growth. So we had to kind of prepare the data to be able to address those two specific variables that they wanted us to look at. That's where we're at today. We're at the data preparation phase, kind of getting things ready to input into our Excel and to our Tableau models to further analyze the data. Further on in this presentation, we'll talk about how we use that to make the data that we currently understand to be large a lot smaller and easier to manage. We intend by the end of the project to end at the fourth phase, which is to develop a model by which future practicum students could use to further study trends and of labor and population growth here for the Huntsville area.
Hi, my name is Courtney Krause, and I'm here to talk to you about the initial research that we have conducted in our project so far and some of our initial findings. As Luis mentioned earlier, we're still in the data preparation phase. There's a lot of data that we are going through on the labor statistics website, and it is very time intensive, so we are still working on gathering that data. But so far we have been working on pulling down all of the information by industry that our client wanted us to look at on growth by number of employees in each category of labor, and also the wage growth or decline in those same areas. So we're currently working on compiling that information. We're also noticing some initial trends, some of which are probably self-explanatory here in Huntsville. There are several areas that are growing rapidly, such as retail, natural resources like mining and construction, the leisure and hospitality services like restaurants and drinking establishments, and then also professional, scientific, and technical services as well. We still have a lot of data to review, but we are noticing initial trends. As you can see on the screen, the wages for civilians in the federal government is on the rise over the past couple of years, but in our other analysis, the actual number of employees in the federal government in the Huntsville area is declining. So that is just an example of some of the initial trends that we are currently seeing in our research.
So we have a few challenges we have to deal with this large data set. Number one, like I said earlier, there's a lot to kind of parse through. One of the mitigations that we determined as a team was to just go to basics, right, and try to clean that data. We have a lot of outliers, right? So when a client tells us, hey, we want you to look at the top 50 cities, well, the question would be, naturally, does that include the big metro areas like Atlanta, New York, or Los Angeles? Well, using some of the cluster analysis through Tableau, that is actually a recent feature, we'll be able to kind of pare that down a little bit. The other thing is, speaking of Tableau, Tableau is very powerful, but there's also a steep learning curve. So we're going to be hitting that specifically for cluster analysis. We may find other opportunities to apply it to, we start comparing metros when they come through scatter plots, when they come to specific areas. How do I explain this? Areas that we want the client to focus on. So for example, like we said earlier, if there's one career path going down in Huntsville, and if it's going up elsewhere, we want to focus on that. And Tableau is, I think, the tool that we're going to use to pinpoint and target those metro areas. So this screenshot here, what it depicts is that initial clustering of our data set. This is right out of the data set, came out of the BLS, but this is our product that we came up with. And Tableau basically said, hey, there's 3 clusters you need to worry about. And it's like we told our client we were going to try to cluster the group to like cities. So at the bottom corner of this slide here, this is the initial parsing down. So instead of having 50, or actually I think it's close to 100 cities, we've broken it down to about a cluster of I think it's like 45 or 40 cities that we can look at that are like us in the areas of growth and percentage change over time, positive change over time. And by the way, Huntsville is at the very middle of that blue section, cluster number 1 on that chart. Okay, and this is just kind of a quick little brainstorm we had today. What we want to do with that clustering, right, is, as like I said earlier, we're looking at real raw numbers today and real percentage change in population over time. And if we could cluster a group of cities on one of those areas, which are the cities that are currently like-sized in the Huntsville size, and likewise, which are the cities that are also meeting the same growth rates as Huntsville, that join in the middle is kind of where our sweet spot is, where we're going to try to focus on. And that number may be less than 45. It may be 10 cities that are experiencing the same type of growth as Huntsville. And that's where it kind of opens it up for the path forward. So with a smaller city cluster, our intent is to look at those, so now taking that data that my colleagues talked about this evening of those industries that may be going up or down, focusing on the ones that are going down here in Huntsville, and then looking at those like cities that are like Huntsville that have the opposite trend. So if we want to have more engineers that focus on electrical systems here in Huntsville, and we think that we've arrived and we are there yet, but in reality the numbers say something else, and that we should be focusing on Raleigh-Durham for our like city recruitment efforts, then that's the information we're hoping we'll find and we'll be able to give to our client. So an example we give here on this slide is we don't use electrical engineering, we use financial services as an example for finding like clustering. So a lot of work yet to be done with that, but I think we're on the right track. If you have any further questions, we've been in touch with our client and expect to meet with the Chamber of Commerce in the next week or two. So we'll be presenting this video to them and trying to see if we're on the right path, and if we need to make adjustments, we'll do so at that time. But thank you very much for your time, and good evening. Thank you.